Hey everyone, welcome to DadsDen of Pop Culture. Just so happens that my normal Wednesday review drop is on April 1st, April Fool's Day. What would be an appropriate film to review on April Fool's Day? I know you might think, well, just any kind of comedy. No, I wanted to do something that was really bizarre, something that was really odd. Now, this does happen to be a comedy. It's also a musical. It is also a gangster film, and it has an all-kid cast, and I think that you could really say this is a film that could not get made today, and I think you probably could have said that even by maybe 1985, maybe earlier than that. Maybe this movie could not have been made in any year other than the year in which it was made, 1976. The film we're going to look at today is Bugsy Malone. So let's cue up the slideshow. There are going to be spoilers in this review. The thing with Bugsy Malone, though, is it's an experience more than it is a story. In fact, you might even argue the plot doesn't really completely matter. So there are going to be spoilers. I will put up the spoiler sign if you maybe have never actually seen this film. But yeah, it's just, it's weird. You're going to see. If you're not aware of Bugsy Malone, you're going to see what I'm talking about here as we roll through. We open on a street. Kind of looks like the 20s or 30s, that general era. This is, of course, the native habitat for gangsters. It is raining, and we get a voiceover. Somebody once said, if it was raining brains, Roxy Robinson wouldn't even get wet. That sort of makes sense, but okay. The sound of footsteps running on the pavement. You hear that echo. And a figure runs through this really impressive set and hides in the entrance to an alley. Roxy had spent his entire life making 2 and 2 equal 5, but he could smell trouble the way other people smell gas. But he could... Again, it's an interesting thing that the dialogue doesn't always completely work in this film. Well, the alley turns out to have been a mistake, as these 4 hoodlums appear. Are you Robinson? Roxy Robinson? You work for Fat Sam? And then they open fire. And Roxy Robinson gets creamed. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you have just entered the truly bizarre world of Bugsy Malone. Cue the music and the voice of Paul Williams singing He's a Sinner, Candy Coated. That's sort of the theme for Bugsy Malone. Paul Williams, the great Paul Williams, fresh from Phantom of the Paradise, an amazing film, but didn't exactly kill at the box office. And he had a few hit pop songs under his belt at this point. He does the music for the film. The genesis of this 1976 musical was director and writer Alan Parker telling his kids stories on long drives about a gangster named Bugsy Malone. He made it up off the top of his head. Kids would be asking him questions, and he'd just start making stuff up. And the kids decided the gangsters should be kids themselves. And there's the light bulb moment. Now, this would be Parker's first film, but certainly not his last. He would later bring the world little films like Fame, Pink Floyd The Wall, The Commitments, and Mississippi Burning, among others. The mark of a skilled filmmaker, besides just doing well at the box office in general, is working in a variety of genres and doing well in all of them. But bear in mind, this is his first film that he's directed. So there are maybe a few problems here and there. We get a few future stars in this one. Scott Baio plays the title role of Bugsy Malone. Of course, he would go on to do Happy Days and Charles in Charge. Jodie Foster had an early role in this film. No need to go over her impressive resume, and we'll talk about her character a bit later. Florrie Duggar and John Cassisi didn't really hit it quite as big. but there are a couple others we'll chat about as they appear on screen. Jeffrey Kirkland brought this world of kid gangsters to life. You've already seen that street set, and the rest of the film looks just as good as it does. We also get pedal-powered cars appropriate to the period, and those whipped cream Tommy guns. He won a BAFTA for his work on this film and was nominated for an Academy Award for The Right Stuff. He also did Fame, War Games, and Space Jam. This film was a British production, and while most of the kid actors didn't become big names, there was some serious talent behind the camera. I'll also call out the lighting cameraman. I think we would use the term cinematographer usually. Peter Bijou also worked on Monty Python's Life of Brian, Time Bandits, 9.5 Weeks, Mississippi Burning, and The Truman Show. And Michael Saracen worked on Fox's Fame, Rambo 3, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and War for the Planet of the Apes. Again, these are some people who are going to go on to make some really, really good films. Gillian Gregory handled the choreography, Tony Award winner, worked in film on Tommy, Quadrophenia, Shock Treatment, Return of the Jedi, Top Secret, and she was the assistant choreographer on the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Well, the credits are over. We follow Bugsy across the street and into a bookstore. But of course, it isn't really a bookstore. It's a speakeasy, Fat Sam's place. Sam is the narrator for this film, at least in the early portions of it. You have it all here. And an all-kid cast. Musicians, waitresses, etc. We work our way backstage past an impatient woman into the office of Fat Sam, who has just discovered that Roxy Robinson has been iced, so to speak. He dresses down his men. How did you let this happen? Cassisi's actually pretty good in this role. He does a nice job with it. While he's raging over the likely perpetrator, Dandy Dan, the girl pokes her head in. She's Blousy Brown, played by Flory Duggar, a singer here for an audition. Naturally, Sam does not have time for singers right now. He's still busy yelling at the goons who all end up with seltzer in the face. So yeah, you kind of got a physical comedy thing going on in this one. Well, while Sam finishes up yelling at his goons, and Blousy and Fizzy, the janitor, worry about making it big, the show starts in the showroom. Paul Williams' voice coming from the kid playing the piano. They pretty much dub over all the singing. When I say pretty much, they dub over all the singing in this. And I got to be honest with you, it doesn't work that well. I think they would have been better off letting the kids sing on their own. Just get some kids who can do that work. But they do a pretty good job of recreating the period, a full musical number. And among the singers is Jodie Foster playing Tallulah. The crowd watches with rapt attention, swilling cheap soda pop. Actually, I think it turns out to be sarsaparilla, while Bugsy bellies up to the bar. He exchanges some words with the bartender, and then turning, runs smack into Blousy Brown, who's sort of hang-dogging it down out of there because she didn't get to do her audition. Come back tomorrow. She hears that a lot. Bugsy and Blousy wind up at a table. This dude does not make a great first impression, but their verbal sparring is interrupted by the same goons that got Roxy Robinson. People hit the deck as they start slinging whipped cream around the joint. Clearly, we are in the middle of a gang war, a very odd gang war, and Sam is in trouble. Well, back out on the street, we see a dangerous-looking mug descend a fire escape. He lurks in the shadows while the barber plies his trade, and a car pedals up. The guy approaches the car, looks in the window. You know what to do. Sure, boss. And he's handed a suitcase. This car speeds off. The mug looks in the window, gives the barber the high sign. The barber nods. While the mug puts together his gat, the barber turns on the water, turns up the radio, puts the cloth over the face of the guy in the chair. He has no idea what is about to happen. And all of a sudden, the mug breaks in. The barber spins the chair, whips off the cloth from his face, and another one bites the dust. Mama Lugini's, or maybe Lugini's, I don't know. We'll say Lugini's. People eat. A violinist strolls around the restaurant. Suddenly, two gunmen burst through the door, literally through the glass door, and hurl whipped cream far and wide, another victim of this escalating gang war. The press surrounds first a police lieutenant, and then Captain Smalls, peppering him with questions. for which he has no comments. While the city descends into mindless violence or whatever this is, Bugsy does his best to chat up Blousy Brown. Lots of witty repartee between the two of them. Pretty much what you would expect from a gangster movie. And that's kind of the draw for this film. It is sort of weird, but it's kind of fun watching them recreate an old gangster movie, kind of like the old Warner Brothers gangster flicks. Not only as a musical, but as a musical that is ostensibly for children. One negative, though, and this does come from having the young cast. Most of them sort of hurry through their dialogue. The pacing's not always that great. Now, this might be, like I said, because it's delivered by kids, but it could also be because they might have tried to pack too much into this movie. Well, while Bugsy strikes out with Blousy, Tallulah is giving Fat Sam the business. No secret here that Jodie Foster's the best actor in the cast, and she definitely has the best delivery. Again, she really doesn't quite hurry through the lines. She's going to go on to play some roles at this time. You know, it's the 70s. But, man, she had the ability, and I think she was 12 when she did this. She had the ability to deliver, adult lines kind of with sincerity. Here it works for comedy. Elsewhere, it was something different. But at any rate, well, they're basically heading out. Sam's been waiting for Speakeasy's closed for the night. He kind of rushes out, promises the janitor, Fizzy, that he also can audition tomorrow. He's heard that many times already. Fizzy is left alone to sweep up, and he sings a little blues number. Again, the voice is dubbed. He's soon accompanied by one of the dancers, a friend of Tallulah's, who was left behind. It's a nice scene. Paul Williams, as you probably know, has a knack for writing catchy songs. A lot of you out there might have grown up on the Muppet Christmas Carol, but I mean, the guy wrote a ton of different things. We rejoin Bugsy and Blousy in a diner. It's past closing time. We find out here that Blousy dreams of making it big in Hollywood, and Bugsy manages fighters. And he used to be a fighter himself, but he was a pretty lousy fighter, which is why he doesn't do it anymore. It's a nice talk, a nice evening, but neither of them have any money. So Bugsy runs a scam to get out without paying. It is not subtle, but it works, and I guess it kind of drops the idea that this is a guy who sort of thinks on his feet, and he's crafty. Well, it's a send-up of old gangster movies, so we had to get the spinning newspaper scene at some point. The big headline, New Weapon for Mobsters. Now here they're referring to the rapid-fire whipped cream gun we've been seeing. Apparently it is called the Splurge gun, and it is an import from Europe. Change of venue, a palatial estate, horses, gardens, string quartet in the gazebo, and the arrival of Bronx Charlie and his boys to meet this guy, DadsDen. Again, the mustache is killing me. He actually looks older than a lot of grown actors these days with that mustache. Very odd. But while that meeting's going on, Blousy is auditioning for a show. Just before she could sing a note, though, the regular singer bursts in, ready to give the producer another chance. Audition is over. And the star hits the stage, Lena Morelli, played by Bonnie Langford, who you might know as Melanie Bush, one of the companions of the Doctor. This movie was made in Britain, so, I mean, somebody connected with Doctor Who had to show up eventually. It's kind of the rule. Now, Blousy is down and out, and frankly, she's pretty cheesed off. So Bugsy tells her he'll fix things with Fat Sam. Claims he's really close to him. Now, back at the meeting, Dan congratulates his men on their fine work, putting the screws to Fat Sam. But one yegg, Doodles, is on the outs. He dropped a gat in that hit on Mama Lugini's, and Dan doesn't permit mistakes. He approaches with a pie in hand, and here we can see that pie throwing was the way hits used to happen in this fantasy kid gangster universe before the introduction of the splurge gun. Doodles ends up taking a pie to the face. DadsDen will not accept failure. There's room for only one Mr. Big in this town, which does appear to be New York, and it's going to be DadsDen. But first, a musical number. If this flick was not weird enough already, like I said, man, the dubbing on the songs takes it up a notch. Almost fever dream territory, they're not quite. The musical numbers, I think, can run a little bit long, considering that you're not actually watching somebody actually sing the tune. The kids are doing all the choreography and stuff. But again, when they're trying to, seems like maybe they're rushing dialogue a little bit. Maybe they could have cut the numbers down. Maybe they could have cut one number out, and I don't think it really would have hurt things. Well, the song ends with Sam shouting at his guys to get the business. They have some planning to do if they're going to get back on top. Their problem is they're too old-fashioned. They'll never beat Dan with pies. They need splurge guns of their own, and Sam knows where to find them. The other mob is stashing their weapons at a Chinese laundry. So off the musical goons go, but it's a trap. Don't look good for Sam's mob at this point. Looks like he needs a smart operator to pull even. And is it crazy that I'm getting just the mildest, like Miller's Crossing vibe here? It probably is crazy. Bugsy shows up now, and he has a little chat with Tallulah. Where's he been? Used to come by and see her every night, that sort of thing. So they got a little history, these two. She gives him a peck on the forehead just as Blousy walks in, so she storms upstairs to see about an audition. We got a love triangle. It was really the only thing that a kid gangster musical still needed. We got a love triangle. Well, she does, in fact, get the job, storms off, still angry at Bugsy. That night, Fat Sam's is packed as always, and Sam is still putting up his front. You notice the little silhouettes in the window to make it look like he has, still has a mob of his own. But things might change. Sam is sent away for a real hoodlum, Big Looney Begonzi from Chicago. They're going to arrange a meeting with DadsDen, but they need a driver. Fortunately, Bugsy just happens to be across the hall, getting shot down by Blousy once again. He needs some green, so the meeting is arranged. Both think they've kind of gotten the better of the other. And then we get another musical number, My Name is Tallulah, which I once recreated in a diner for my daughter with a bottle of Cholula, the hot sauce. It killed, trust me, it really killed. Monday morning, the meeting. And this shot actually does remind me of Miller's Crossing just a bit. Sam, Bugsy, and Big Looney wait in their pedal car. Big Looney carries a couple cream pies. This is serious, but it's quiet. No sign at first of DadsDen, and then he arrives. Dan and Sam have words. And when Sam tells Big Looney to let him have it, Dan's gang appears in the woods, loaded for bear. Whipped cream flies. Big Looney is leveled without ever throwing a pie. Sam takes a few strays, and Bugsy hightails it for some cover behind a tree. Given that whipped cream is sort of a stand-in this movie for bullets, Bugsy Malone might actually be the goriest gangster film ever made. Eat your heart out, Sam Peckinpah. Well, this leads to a car chase through the woods, thrills, chills, driving through chicken coops and picnics, all the tropes, and a broken chain on one car, winds Dan and his mob into a pond. The main thing through all this, though, is that Fat Sam and Bugsy are now pals. Now, back at Sam's, Blousy is pining for Bugsy and daydreaming about making movies in Hollywood. When Bugsy calls, she does answer finally this time, despite a smart remark from Tallulah, and he tells her that he made $200 off of Fat Sam and he gets to borrow his car. So it's time for a ride in the country, this time without the chase. You get a montage of them having a picnic and, rowing a boat and all that kind of good stuff. The day ends with hot dogs and the promise of 2 tickets to Hollywood. Well, when Bugsy drops off Fat Sam's car that night, he's ambushed by a bunch of just basically like muggers. They steal his $200, so there goes the money for the tickets. But he is saved by a passing stranger, a kid who can really fight. This is Leroy Smith, played by Paul Murphy. And Bugsy has ideas about making this kid a boxer. Well, more headlines. The gang war is heating up. We see hoodlums break up a still, the sarsaparilla racket, just the basic montage of one gang beating the other one senseless. Well, the police end up finding the scene of the fight from before. We see that they are bumblers. They accidentally dump a tub of plaster over their captain. Kid humor is not sophisticated, but it works. We then get another song, a training montage of Leroy Smith learning the ropes from Cagey Joe and Bugsy. Sam, meanwhile, is trying to invent a splurge gun of his own. Doesn't work, and his last hood, Knuckles, is now down for the count. Sam is panicking a bit now at this point. Dan's depredations continue apace. Soon, Sam's empire is gone. He decides he needs Bugsy's help. He can't get him on the phone, so he sends Tallulah to get him personally. Tallulah brings Bugsy back to Sam's. Like I said, Foster, she really is the best actress in this. And Sam, though, at this point is really losing it. He asks Bugsy for help, and Bugsy is hesitant. After all, he's managing a boxer now. That's more his line. But the pay is good, and he did just lose $200 he was going to use to take Blousy to Hollywood. So he agrees. He's going to help Fat Sam out of this predicament. Well, Blousy calls at that moment. There's a little argument. She's not thrilled with him being anywhere near Tallulah, and she's even more ticked off that he hasn't bought those tickets yet. She got her hopes up, and now it looks like Bugsy might not come through, and this leads to another song. As she sings, we see Bugsy and Leroy infiltrating Dandy Dan's estate, seeing the splurge guns being unloaded, which gives them the name of the company. Well, the song ends with Blousy getting her job back at Fat Sam's. And the dialogue, there's some good stuff here. You ever see a broad carry a torch so high? Yeah, the Statue of Liberty. There is a funny element of hearing that come out of the mouths of kids. The trope of kids in adult roles as comedy was more widespread in those days, I think, than it is now. Just, it was this funny juxtaposition. Almost 50 years later, it just feels kind of bizarre. Well, Bugsy and Leroy track down that company that's making the guns, Splurge Incorporated, which, I mean, might have been able to figure that one out on your own. It is heavily guarded by kids in baseball uniforms, catcher masks, and wielding baseball bats. Why? I'm really not sure. Again, we're kind of in fever dream territory for most of this movie. And the Gats, like I said, imported from Europe, which honestly, the idea that America would have to import a tool of such comical mayhem is a little bit insulting to me as an American. Well, they decide, though, they got to get through that security. They can't do it themselves. They need more men. In fact, they need an army. But where are they going to find an army around here? Well, as they're walking off, a stroke of luck, Bugsy and Leroy happen upon a soup kitchen. We get another musical number. Just keeps getting stranger, and it's another long one. And Bugsy rallies a lot of these guys to work for Fat Sam. So back the new troops go to Splurge Incorporated. They send Babyface in. Kid does a really nice job, by the way, with this part. He sneaks in, clobbers a guy, and then runs off, drawing the guards away. This allows Bugsy and Leroy and his guys to get in there and heist a bunch of the Splurge guns. While all this is happening, Dandy Dan, back at his estate, is rallying his hoods for the final showdown. They're going for Sam's speakeasy. But they have a surprise waiting for them, as all the staff and the new recruits, now disguised as waiters, are laying an ambush for them with their new splurge guns. It's going to be a bloodbath, or whatever a whipped cream equivalent of a bloodbath is. Enter Dandy Dan's mob. Again, man, I love these pedal cars. I wonder if any of them have survived to this day. They're really fantastic. In Fat Sam's, the girls are on stage performing. The guests are all enjoying themselves. And then Dandy Dan bursts in, and Sam's boys open fire. I still remember liking this bit as a kid. Essentially, it is a mechanized pie fight, and who doesn't love a good pie fight? Everybody gets a pie to the face, including Tallulah. When the whipped cream, I think really shaving cream, honestly, the way they filmed it, stops flying, you get the sound of a piano to break the silence and a song. We could have been anything we wanted to be, and it's not too late to change. The old foes shake hands. There's lots of smiles. You give a little love, and it all comes back to you. So we get a little lesson in the song. Though honestly, what leads up to the song has nothing to do with that lesson. Nobody was giving a little love. It was just a great big pie fight, and everybody had a good time. Anyways, Bugsy and Blousy head off to Hollywood, all smiles. And after all, wasn't really this whole movie just for a laugh anyways? In the end. All right, let's talk about this movie. I'll take the spoilers down. Because again, it's really hard to spoil a movie that the plot's almost secondary. Like I said, I think in the intro, Bugsy Malone is an experience. Yes, there's a story. it doesn't really matter all that much. It's an experience. It is an excuse to create this amazing world, the sets, the costumes, the dance numbers, etc., to create this amazing, like Warner Brothers gangster period picture with kids. That's what it's all about. The pros. Again, well, it's the look of the thing. The art direction's amazing. They did a great job. They did a good job with the choreography for the most part. Again, it's a little different when you're doing choreography for kids. They're not going to be quite as capable, obviously, as a professional adult, but I think they did a really nice job with it. Jodie Foster does a great job. Some of the kids do a nice job. Baio does a good job too. But again, Jodie Foster, she was already a notch above everybody in her age group as an actress at this point. And this movie's really shows that off well. But most of them do a good job. They hurry the dialogue a little bit. That happens a lot with kids because again, they're not adult professional actors. I'm the father of a theater kid, and so I went to a lot of plays in my day with kid casts, and most of those plays would have originally been for adults because that's what most musicals are. So like Grease or things of that nature, Wicked. I had to sit through some. I talk about this being a fever dream. I sat through some really weird plays in my day, and the kids would be good, but obviously not quite as good as a professional adult cast. So that's part of the experience in this thing. It's part of the joke. There's a lot of humor. It doesn't always land perfectly. Sometimes the timing is not quite there, but I can say this movie was intended for kids. I saw it when I was in elementary school. We had a PTA thing that would provide tickets for matinees during summer vacation. Give parents a break every once in a while. So we'd go, mom would take us, me and my sister and friends, etc. Get some red vines, get some Cokes, get some popcorn, and go in, watch a couple Woody Woodpecker cartoons and a movie. And this was one of them. And I remember liking it for the most part when I was a little kid. It's pies to the face and stuff like that works. The musical numbers didn't bother me. I don't know that I paid that much attention to them. I mostly remember coming out going, I want one of those guns that shoots whipped cream, and I want one of those pedal cars because that thing is freaking awesome. So it's intended for kids. And it didn't do great in the United States. They released it like as a double bill with, I think, The Bad News Bears, which had already been in theaters for a while. So it didn't do much here. I think it did better in Britain. And I think it kind of became something that would be on like every year. So a lot of Brits kind of maybe grew up with this movie at one point in time. But I think it did well with a kid audience. It's a little tougher for an adult audience because, again, the way they dub the voices really doesn't do the musical numbers a lot of credit. Paul Williams, he's a great writer of songs. They're very catchy. I would love to hear them done just with an adult normally recorded well, because some of them are pretty good songs. But here it's kind of just odd. It feels off. And I guess maybe that's what this movie, if you're not a little kid, and I have shown this to my daughter when she was younger, again, she was a theater kid, and I think she kind of liked it. But if you're not a kid watching this thing, I think the main appeal is the fact that it is just so odd. It's just such a weird film, and one of those kind of movies that probably could only be made by this particular group of people in 1976. Like I said, some of the folks who did it had worked on like Rocky Horror Picture Show. It's sort of in that vein in a way, not exactly in that vein, don't worry, but it's sort of in that vein of just something that is odd. It's there just to give you a laugh, just to marvel at the look of the whole thing. It's kind of a fun little movie. Just don't expect, a really great film. Just expect an odd, enjoyable, like hour and a half. And I think you'll be fine with this film. Let me know in the comments what you think of Bugsy Malone. I would love to hear what you have to say. If you enjoyed this little April Fool's Day review, please give it a like, maybe subscribe, maybe share the channel with a friend, or maybe an enemy. I mean, if depending on how you think they'll take Bugsy Malone. But until next time, God bless everybody. Please be kind to one another. Have a little bit of fun out there. Watch Bugsy Malone. Why not? It won't kill you, at any rate. And I will see you again, hopefully soon, in Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Bye-bye.